CompTIA Cloud Plus Certification Exam Backup and Disaster Recovery. Question 1. Harbor Public Services is preparing an update to its Citizen Services portal and needs to share an environment among organizations with common regulatory needs. Which cloud model is the strongest choice? Option A, private cloud. Option B, the infrastructure as a service. Option C, software as a service. Option D, a community cloud. The correct answer is option D, community cloud. A sector-focused shared environment can align controls, policies, and costs for participants with similar compliance obligations. For the Citizen Services portal, the governing factor is the requested behavior, and this approach provides it directly. Conversely, a general public environment may not provide the required shared governance model. Question 2. For its Citizen Services portal, Harbor Public Services wants to change resource count in response to measured demand. Which architecture pattern is most appropriate? Option A, fault tolerance. Option B, cloud bursting. Option C, automatic scaling. Option D, load balancing. The correct answer is option C, automatic scaling. Metric-driven scaling aligns capacity with workload changes and reduces the need for constant manual intervention. In this scenario, the capability addresses the immediate design objective and avoids solving a different problem. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that fixed capacity could either waste resources or become insufficient during spikes. Question 3. The current proposal for Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal has a drawback. Local session storage would tie users to individual instances. The team still needs to store session state outside replaceable service instances. Which compute architecture should replace the proposal? Option A, virtual machines. Option B, container orchestration. Option C, edge computing. Option D, stateless application tier. The correct answer is option D, stateless application tier. Externalizing state allows any healthy instance to process a request and makes scaling or replacement easier. For the Citizen Services portal, the governing factor is the requested behavior, and this approach provides it directly. Other options may be useful elsewhere, yet they do not provide the capability emphasized by this scenario. Stressed about your CompTIA exam? We can take CompTIA exam for you remotely and undetected. We always guarantee a pass and payments only after results. To send us an email, scan the code or tap the link in the description and let's get it done. Question 4. Before the next production change to Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal, the team must store large amounts of unstructured data accessed through an API. Which data-service choice should be prioritized? Option A, NoSQL database. Option B, archive storage. Option C, block storage. Option D, object storage. The correct answer is option D, object storage. Object-based storage scales broadly and uses metadata-rich objects rather than a mounted block device. The scenario calls for this capability because the Citizen Services portal depends on the specified behavior rather than a general cloud feature. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that a low-level disk interface would add unnecessary file system management. Question 5. For Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal, the team must provide centralized routing among many cloud and on-premises networks. It also wants to avoid a design where full mesh peering would become difficult to scale and govern. Which network architecture offers the most appropriate balance? Option A, a network address translation gateway. Option B, a transit hub. Option C, a virtual private network. Option D, public subnet. The correct answer is option B, transit hub. A hub and spoke transit design reduces the number of pairwise connections and centralizes route control. The design decision fits the Citizen Services portal because it targets the exact availability, security, deployment, or operational need described. Other options may be useful elsewhere, yet they do not provide the capability emphasized by this scenario. Question 6. Harbor Public Services is designing its Citizen Services portal. A key requirement is to define the maximum tolerable amount of data loss measured in time. Which recovery design provides the closest fit? Option A, Pilot Light. Option B, Recovery Point Objective. Option C, Recovery Time Objective. Option D, Hot Standby. The correct answer is option B, Recovery Point Objective. The data-loss target determines replication and backup frequency requirements. For Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal, that capability maps directly to the stated technical requirement. The nearby alternatives are less suitable because focusing only on service restoration time would not define acceptable data loss. Question 7. Engineers reviewing Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal describe the intended behavior as follows: historical and peak utilization data support right-sized compute, storage, and network choices. Which planning decision does this description identify? Option A, a compliance assessment. Option B, proof of concept. Option C, capacity assessment. Option D, resource tagging strategy. The correct answer is option C, capacity assessment. The described behavior supports the requirement to measure workload demand before selecting cloud resources. The design decision fits the Citizen Services portal because it targets the exact availability, security, deployment, or operational need described. Conversely, guessing resource sizes could cause either waste or performance problems. Question 8. During release planning for Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal, engineers are instructed to prevent simultaneous infrastructure updates from corrupting shared state. Which provisioning practice should be implemented? Option A, drift detection. Option B, idempotent automation. Option C, state locking. Option D, golden image. The correct answer is option C, state locking. Mutual exclusion protects the record used to compare desired and actual resources during changes. The requirement is satisfied by matching the cloud capability to the Citizen Services portal's stated operating condition. The nearby alternatives are less suitable because parallel writers could overwrite or misinterpret infrastructure state. Are you looking for CompTIA exam actual questions? Visit our website pokerexams.com to access CompTIA exam study guide with actual questions and answers. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get CompTIA exam answer key today. Question 9. For Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal, the team must synchronize data before directing production traffic to the new database. It also wants to avoid a design where copying all data only after shutdown could exceed the downtime target. Which migration approach offers the most appropriate balance? Option A, a database replication cutover. Option B, refactor. Option C, rehost. Option D, retain. The correct answer is option A, database replication cutover. Continuous or staged replication reduces the final outage window and data divergence during migration. The choice is appropriate for Harbor Public Services because it acts on the requirement identified in the scenario, not merely on a related concern. The distractors are legitimate cloud techniques, but they address different requirements from the one being tested. Question 10. The current proposal for Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal has a drawback: stopping all instances at once would cause avoidable downtime. The team still needs to replace instances gradually while preserving service capacity. Which release practice should replace the proposal? Option A, a rollback plan. Option B, a rolling deployment. Option C, feature flag. Option D, performance test. The correct answer is option B, rolling deployment. Incremental replacement supports continuous availability without maintaining two full environments. The requirement is satisfied by matching the cloud capability to the Citizen Services portal's stated operating condition. A nearby concept would leave the central requirement unresolved even though it could improve another part of the environment. Question 11. Engineers reviewing Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal describe the intended behavior as follows: cloud services often restrict counts or capacity, so planned increases prevent deployment failures. Which configuration choice does this description identify? Option A, managed identity. Option B, resource quota request. Option C, availability minus zone placement. Option D is separate production account. The correct answer is option B, resource quota request. The described behavior supports the requirement to increase an enforced service limit before large scale provisioning. The choice is appropriate for Harbor Public Services because it acts on the requirement identified in the scenario, not merely on a related concern. By contrast, retrying unchanged requests would not remove the provider limit. Question 12. For Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services portal, the team must track numeric service health and capacity trends over time. It also wants to avoid a design where individual log messages alone would not provide an efficient aggregate view. Which observability method offers the most appropriate balance? Option A, synthetic monitoring. Option B, baseline analysis. Option C, metrics dashboard. Option D is centralized logging. The correct answer is option C, metrics dashboard. Time-series measurements reveal utilization, error rates, latency, and saturation patterns suitable for thresholds and trends. For Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal, that capability maps directly to the stated technical requirement. A nearby concept would leave the central requirement unresolved even though it could improve another part of the environment. Question 13. Architects supporting Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal need the solution to use interruptible compute for fault-tolerant flexible workloads. Which optimization action should they choose? Option A is spot capacity. Option B, budget alert. Option C, show back. Option D, right sizing. The correct answer is option A, spot capacity. Discounted spare capacity can reduce cost when jobs can checkpoint, retry, or tolerate termination. The choice is appropriate for Harbor Public Services because it acts on the requirement identified in the scenario, not merely on a related concern. By contrast, placing a non-interruptible critical service there would create unacceptable availability risk. Question 14. The current proposal for Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal has a drawback: an untested recovery design may fail when urgently needed. The team still needs to rehearse switching services to the recovery environment. Which recovery operation should replace the proposal? Option A, immutable backup. Option B, failover exercise. Option C, failback plan. Option D, cross-region replication. The correct answer is option B, failover exercise. Plan tests validate runbooks, dependencies, access, and recovery timing before a real outage. The proposed use aligns with the workload constraint and supports a defensible vendor-neutral cloud decision. The decision depends on the stated constraint rather than on selecting the most broadly familiar cloud technology. Question 15. A production-readiness review for Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal requires the team to maintain relationships and ownership for managed cloud assets. Which operational practice belongs in the plan? Option A, key rotation procedure. Option B, a configuration management database. Option C, patch maintenance window. Option D, runbook. The correct answer is option B, configuration management database. A configuration repository supports impact analysis by linking services, components, and responsible teams. Applied within Harbor Public Services' environment, the approach resolves the central constraint without expanding the solution beyond its purpose. By contrast, a simple unlabeled resource list would not capture dependencies. Question 16. For Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal, the team must grant elevated access only for an approved limited period. It also wants to avoid a design where permanent administrator rights would exceed routine need. Which identity control offers the most appropriate balance? Option A, attribute-based access control. Option B, access review. Option C, separation of duties. Option D, just in time privilege. The correct answer is option D, just in time privilege. Time-bound elevation reduces standing administrative exposure and creates a clearer audit trail. This approach gives Harbor Public Services the required behavior while keeping the implementation aligned with the workload's actual demand. The decision depends on the stated constraint rather than on selecting the most broadly familiar cloud technology. Question 17. For its Citizen Services Portal, Harbor Public Services wants to replace sensitive values with non-sensitive references. Which protection control is most appropriate? Option A, tokenization. Option B, customer-managed key. Option C, secrets manager. Option D, encryption in transit. The correct answer is option A, tokenization. A token can preserve application workflows while keeping the original regulated value in a protected system. The scenario calls for this capability because the Citizen Services Portal depends on the specified behavior rather than a general cloud feature. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that ordinary masking may still expose or retain the underlying value in more locations. Question 18. Engineers reviewing Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal describe the intended behavior as follows: workload-level boundaries limit lateral movement even within the same broader network zone. Which network security control does this description identify? Option A, microsegmentation. Option B, intrusion prevention system. Option C, bastion host. Option D is zero-trust access. The correct answer is option A, microsegmentation. The described behavior supports the requirement to apply fine-grained controls between individual workloads. This approach gives Harbor Public Services the required behavior while keeping the implementation aligned with the workload's actual demand. A different choice would be weaker because a single perimeter rule would allow excessive east-west access. Stressed about your CompTIA exam? We can take CompTIA exam for you remotely and undetected. We always guarantee a pass and payments only after results. To send us an email, scan the code or tap the link in the description and let's get it done. Question 19. Before the next production change to Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal, the team must obscure sensitive fields in non-production views or datasets. Which governance control should be prioritized? Option A, audit trail. Option B, a data loss prevention. Option C, data masking. Option D, a data classification. The correct answer is option C, data masking. Replacing visible values reduces exposure while preserving format or usefulness for testing and support. In this scenario, the capability addresses the immediate design objective and avoids solving a different problem. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that copying production values unchanged would expose unnecessary sensitive data. Question 20. The design brief for Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal states that the environment must identify known weaknesses and insecure configurations on a recurring basis. Which security response best meets the brief? Option A, incident containment. Option B, hardened image. Option C, a vulnerability scanning. Option D, root-cause remediation. The correct answer is option C, vulnerability scanning. Automated assessment supports prioritized remediation before weaknesses are exploited. This approach gives Harbor Public Services the required behavior while keeping the implementation aligned with the workload's actual demand. A different choice would be weaker because waiting for an incident would leave preventable exposure unaddressed. Question 21. The current proposal for Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal has a drawback: manual rebuilding for every release would reduce consistency. The team still needs to keep validated changes ready for a controlled production release. Which DevOps practice should replace the proposal? Option A, pipeline approval gate. Option B, feature branch. Option C, continuous deployment. Option D, continuous delivery. The correct answer is option D, continuous delivery. Automated build and test stages produce deployable artifacts while preserving a deliberate release decision. In this scenario, the capability addresses the immediate design objective and avoids solving a different problem. The alternatives solve adjacent design or operational problems instead of the specific issue identified here. Question 22. Engineers reviewing Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal describe the intended behavior as follows: early automated checks prevent prohibited resources from reaching production and shorten feedback. Which automation practice does this description identify? Option A, a configuration management. Option B, policy validation in pipeline. Option C, API-driven automation. Option D, automated configuration drift repair. The correct answer is option B, policy validation in pipeline. The described behavior supports the requirement to reject non-compliant infrastructure before deployment. For the Citizen Services Portal, the governing factor is the requested behavior, and this approach provides it directly. Conversely, detecting violations only after creation would require remediation. Question 23. A cloud incident involving Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal cannot be resolved until the team can confirm that the requested service name maps to the intended address. Which troubleshooting action should be prioritized? Option A, validate load-balancer health checks. Option B, check address exhaustion. Option C, review security-group rules. Option D, check domain-name resolution. The correct answer is option D, check domain-name resolution. Testing name resolution separates DNS problems from basic address-level connectivity. The scenario calls for this capability because the Citizen Services Portal depends on the specified behavior rather than a general cloud feature. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that restarting compute resources would not fix an incorrect record. Question 24. A cloud incident involving Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal cannot be resolved until the team can identify whether clients are exhausting the allowed session pool. Which diagnostic action should be prioritized? Option A, inspect database connection limits. Option B, compare with performance baseline. Option C, analyze application traces. Option D, check memory pressure. The correct answer is option A, inspect database connection limits. Connection saturation can reject or delay requests while compute metrics remain normal. For the Citizen Services Portal, the governing factor is the requested behavior, and this approach provides it directly. Conversely, increasing object-storage capacity would not provide database sessions. Question 25. A cloud incident involving Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal cannot be resolved until the team can determine why an incident occurred without a useful alert. Which corrective action should be prioritized? Option A. Review monitoring coverage. Option B. Inspect identity-policy evaluation. Option C. Validate template syntax. Option D. Examine pipeline logs. The correct answer is option A. Review monitoring coverage. Missing telemetry, incorrect dimensions, or absent thresholds can leave failures invisible until users report them. For Harbor Public Services' Citizen Services Portal, that capability maps directly to the stated technical requirement. The nearby alternatives are less suitable because lowering every threshold would create noise without filling the data gap.